Have you ever stopped to think how much your life could change if, instead of constantly trying to prove something, you just listened? In today's world, everyone seems to compete to speak loudest, express their opinion fastest, and always have the last word. But amidst all this noise, there emerges a silent power few know: the ability to be silent at the right moment. This skill isn't just about speaking less, but about transforming silence into strength, self-control, and practical wisdom for everyday life. Many people carry a subtle sense of insecurity that pushes them to respond immediately, justify everything, or engage in unnecessary conflicts. The result is emotional fatigue and wasted energy in battles that shouldn't even exist. Stoicism, an ancient yet profoundly relevant philosophy, shows a different path. Learning to listen attentively, tame the ego, and cultivate patience to act with clarity. When silence becomes an ally, it opens space for reflection, strengthens self-confidence, and transforms even the most tense dialogues into opportunities for growth. Throughout this text, you'll discover how to transform silence into a strategic tool, capable of reducing external and internal noise, facing conflicts with serenity, and building solid self-confidence. We'll walk together through concepts that combine ancient wisdom with modern practices, without magic formulas, but with real steps to help you feel more secure and in control of yourself. And, in the end, you might realize that remaining calm before speaking is one of the greatest secrets to winning everyday battles. Really listen. True listening is a rare but powerful gesture. When you practice active listening, you not only grasp the other person's words, but also perceive their intentions, emotions, and even the silence between sentences. This goes far beyond waiting your turn to speak. It's about creating inner space for the other person to express themselves without interruption. This simple act reduces conflict, calms the ego, and reveals a wisdom that only comes from patience. Try, for example, putting your phone aside during an important conversation and simply observing the person's body language. You'll notice details that were previously invisible. This practice, though simple, helps strengthen your self-confidence because it demonstrates that you're controlling your impulse to react, cultivating self-control and serenity. Often, insecurity leads us to fill every pause with justifications or quick responses, as if silence were something wrong. But in reality, silence is an ally. When you choose to listen instead of speaking, you demonstrate wisdom and convey a quiet self-confidence that requires no explanation. This doesn't mean passivity. It means being present. In a work chat, for example, while everyone else is jockeying for space to speak, you can listen attentively, take notes, and only then formulate your contribution. This habit, inspired by Stoicism, allows your words to carry more weight and portrays you as someone reflective, unfazed by impulses or other people's dramas. Shut your ego. Taming your ego is one of the greatest exercises in self-control. It's what makes us want to always have the last word, prove ourselves right, and respond to criticism even when it's unnecessary. When you begin to recognize this impulse, you also realize how much it generates unnecessary conflict and drains your energy. Giving in to your ego is like feeding a flame that never goes out. The more you talk, the more you want to talk. A practical way to weaken it is to take a deep breath before responding to provocations, whether in a meeting or in a personal conversation. This simple act gives space for reflection, reduces insecurity disguised as self-confidence, and brings more patience to deal with each situation. Silencing your ego doesn't mean being submissive, but choosing your battles wisely. By avoiding speaking impulsively, you protect your peace of mind and strengthen your image as someone confident and balanced. Instead of engaging in debates to prove your point, try simply listening and smiling, letting the silence speak for itself. Over time, you'll notice how people begin to respect your stance, associating your silence with self-confidence rather than weakness. This stoic attitude transforms any environment. While others get lost in excuses, you practice patience and active listening, consolidating a quiet power that arises from the conscious choice to silence your ego. Silence makes you powerful. In a world where everyone competes for attention and talks non-stop, silence emerges as an almost revolutionary differentiator. Speaking less and with more purpose gives your words weight and authority, transforming each sentence into something worth listening to. When you choose to pause rather than rush, you convey wisdom, patience, and self-control. It's like a chess player who, before moving a piece, analyzes the entire board. Their decision isn't quick, but it's accurate. This behavior dispels insecurity and builds self-confidence, as you realize you don't need to respond immediately to be relevant. On the contrary, time and reflection make your speech more precise and impactful. Furthermore, silence creates an aura of respect and mystery. People begin to realize that you don't waste words and that each comment carries meaning. A practical example. In a work meeting, while everyone is anxiously offering their opinions, you can listen, take notes, and only speak at the end, with a clear and objective summary. This simple gesture conveys inner security and diffuses conflict, as your intervention is grounded and balanced. By practicing this type of strategic silence, inspired by Stoicism, you learn to protect your energy, reduce unnecessary drama, and become a powerful presence without having to raise your voice. The power of silence. Silence isn't just the absence of words, but a conscious act of self-control. Amid the constant noise of the modern world, choosing to remain silent becomes a strategic decision. It's not about passivity but selectivity. You decide what deserves to be said and what can be filtered. This pause creates an internal space for reflection, patience, and wisdom. When you practice active listening and wait before responding, you can perceive nuances that would otherwise go unnoticed in a rush. This approach reduces conflict and strengthens your self-confidence, demonstrating that you have control over your impulses. A simple exercise is to count to 3 before saying something important or responding to provocation. It seems trivial, but this habit prevents emotional leaks and shows that you don't get swept up in the drama of the moment. At work, for example, when someone criticizes or questions your decisions, you breathe, listen, and only then respond clearly and calmly. This stoic behavior transforms silence into both a shield and a sword. It protects your energy and gives more weight to your words when you finally decide to speak. Thus, silence ceases to be an embarrassment and becomes a tool of power and presence. Close your mouth in time. How many times have you regretted something said in the heat of the moment? This feeling is common because, when emotion speaks louder, reflection takes a back seat. Learning to shut your mouth in time is an exercise in anticipation, foreseeing the consequences of your words before you speak them. This habit demonstrates self-control, patience, and wisdom. For example, in a family argument, when you feel the urge to retort, take a deep breath and tell yourself, "I'll wait 10 seconds before responding." This short pause helps defuse conflict, reduce drama, and strengthen your self-confidence because it shows that you are in control of your reactions, not the other way around. This practice isn't a sign of weakness, but of maturity. Shutting your mouth in time prevents emotional leaks that feed the ego and increase insecurity. Instead of overly justifying or explaining every action, you choose strategic silence, which preserves your energy and your image. Imagine, for example, receiving a provocative email at work. Instead of responding immediately, you let the text rest, review it later, and respond in a balanced manner. This conscious pause transforms potential conflicts into opportunities for reflection and growth. Thus, remaining silent at the right moment becomes a gesture of power, not omission. Be patient so you don't explode. Patience is an underrated superpower. In stressful situations, the urge to react is almost irresistible, but that's precisely when your self-control needs to kick in. Taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or stepping away for a few minutes may seem simple, but it prevents thoughtless responses and conflicts that leave scars. When you practice this pause, you demonstrate wisdom and self-confidence, transforming insecurity into inner calm. A practical example. When receiving harsh criticism at work, instead of responding immediately, thank them, reflect on what was said, and only then decide whether or not you need to respond. This small gesture protects your peace of mind and builds respect around you. Patience doesn't mean accepting injustice or swallowing feelings. It means choosing the right moment to express yourself. This stoic practice helps avoid unnecessary drama and allows your speech to be clearer and more objective when it finally arrives. Imagine chaotic traffic. Instead of honking and shouting, put on some relaxing music or an inspiring audiobook, like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, for example. This kind of attitude trains your brain to maintain serenity amidst the chaos. Over time, your patience becomes a shield against destructive impulses and strengthens the self-confidence of those who know they don't need to react immediately to be in control. Silence is for the wise. In an age where everyone has an opinion on everything, remaining silent has become a rare and valuable act. It's not about being silent, but about carefully choosing when and how to express yourself. This skill demonstrates wisdom, patience, and self-control, as it indicates that you control your impulses and don't allow yourself to be drawn into unnecessary conflicts. When you learn to remain silent, you allow time for reflection and prevent insecurity from manifesting itself in the form of endless justifications. A practical example. In a tense meeting, while everyone raises their voices, you remain attentive, listening, and analyzing. When you finally speak, your intervention is precise, balanced, and respected. This conscious silence also strengthens self-confidence. By realizing you don't need to give your opinion on everything to be valued, you reduce the burden of your ego and increase your credibility. People begin to see your calmness as a sign of maturity, not weakness. Try practicing this habit on social media. Before commenting or responding to a controversial post, consider whether your opinion will actually contribute or simply fuel empty arguments. This choice, inspired by Stoicism, saves energy, avoids drama, and transforms silence into a true ally in your personal growth. Master the uncomfortable silence. That silence that arises in the middle of a conversation may seem uncomfortable, but it's not your enemy. In fact, knowing how to remain calm in these moments demonstrates self-confidence, wisdom, and self-control. Instead of rushing to fill the space with nervous words, allow the pause to breathe. This attitude shows patience and reduces insecurity, both yours and the other person's, opening space for deeper reflection. For example, during a job interview, after answering a difficult question, don't rush to justify every detail. Let the interviewer absorb your answer. This strategic silence reinforces your image as someone confident and centered. Practicing mastery of awkward silence is like training a muscle. It may feel strange at first, but over time it becomes second nature. You begin to realize that you don't need to participate in every drama or conflict to feel relevant. Imagine a social gathering where there's a lull in the conversation. Instead of bringing up a random topic, smile calmly, maintain eye contact, and let the conversation flow at the other person's pace. This kind of stoic behavior transforms silence into a powerful ally, protecting your energy and creating a striking presence without you having to say a single word. Silence against drama. Life is full of small dramas, gossip, and provocations that seem to demand our participation. However, silence presents a powerful barrier against this chaos. By not getting involved in conflicts that don't concern you, you protect your energy, maintain calm, and strengthen your self-confidence. This self-control reduces the insecurity that arises when we feel the need to justify our choices or defend every action. For example, when hearing malicious comments about colleagues or acquaintances, simply listening without reacting allows you to preserve your peace and avoid unnecessary confrontations, transforming patience into a true emotional shield. Furthermore, silence in the face of drama increases your credibility and perceived wisdom. When you choose not to react to provocations, others begin to notice your firm and balanced stance. It's as if every unnecessary word becomes noise, while what you say consciously gains weight. Practicing this type of silence inspired by Stoicism means prioritizing your energy and attention to what truly matters, avoiding emotional exhaustion. This way, you create a calmer environment around you and reinforce control over your ego, demonstrating that true strength lies in acting thoughtfully, not in a rush to react. Don't reply to everything. Not every criticism or provocation deserves a response. This simple yet powerful principle demonstrates self-control, patience, and wisdom. By choosing your battles, you avoid unnecessary burnout and protect your emotional energy. Insecurity often leads us to react, trying to prove something or justify every action, but Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what we can control. For example, when faced with provocative messages on social media, instead of responding immediately, reflect, Is this worth wasting my energy on? This simple habit strengthens your self-confidence and reduces conflicts that serve no purpose. Resisting the urge to respond to everything creates a posture of silent authority. People realize that you don't act impulsively or seek constant approval, but that your presence carries weight even without exaggerated words. A practical example. In group meetings, when someone tries to spark an unnecessary discussion, you remain calm, listen, and only contribute if you have something truly relevant to add. This kind of discipline helps cultivate patience, self-control, and reflection, transforming silence into a strategic tool that strengthens your personal power and inner security. Don't explain too much. The need to justify every action or decision often stems from a silent insecurity. When we feel the need to convince others of our worth or choices, we end up wasting unnecessary energy and creating opportunities for conflict. Stoicism teaches us that clarity and conciseness are worth more than long explanations. A practical example. If someone questions your work plan, simply state the essential points and stand your ground. Silence fills the rest, conveying confidence and self-control. This way, you reduce drama, avoid pointless debates, and strengthen your presence with measured and meaningful words. Over-explaining also feeds the ego and increases vulnerability to criticism. By trusting your own assessment and actions, you demonstrate self-confidence and patience. Imagine yourself in a meeting where everyone expects detailed justifications for a decision. Instead of going on and on, summarize the rationale, highlight the main points, and allow silence to work in your favor. This approach not only prevents burnout, but also projects wisdom. Gradually, you'll realize that speaking less and acting consciously reduces inner insecurity and increases the natural authority that arises from calm, reflection, and self-control. The advantage of being unpredictable. Being unpredictable doesn't mean acting erratically or impulsively, but rather maintaining a certain mystery about your intentions and decisions. When you don't reveal everything about yourself right away, you create an aura of respect and curiosity, which reinforces your self-confidence and protects you from manipulation. This attitude requires patience, self-control, and constant reflection on when to speak and when to remain silent. For example, in a work environment, by not immediately revealing all the details of a project, you demonstrate mastery and strategy, strengthening your presence and preventing other people's egos from dictating the pace of the conversation. Furthermore, unpredictability allows you to choose your battles wisely. It's not about shutting yourself off or ignoring others, but about having control over your narrative and energy. By maintaining this balance, you reduce the insecurity that arises from the need to constantly please or justify your actions. A simple habit like thinking before answering unexpected questions creates space for reflection and strengthens inner wisdom. Over time, this attitude transforms silence into a tool of power. Your words begin to have impact and your actions, meaning, revealing a solid and strategic self-confidence. Calm down before speaking. Responding hastily invites regret. Haste turns communication into fertile ground for conflict and insecurity, because our words often reflect momentary impulses and emotions. Practicing calm before speaking is an exercise in self-control and reflection. It allows you to process your emotions, choose your words carefully, and convey self-confidence. For example, in a difficult conversation, pause briefly before responding. Breathe, organize your thoughts, and only then speak. This simple gesture reduces tension, prevents emotional leaks, and transforms the dialogue into something more conscious and impactful. Furthermore, the practice of pausing reinforces your authority and presence. When you speak after reflecting, each word gains weight and relevance, while silence becomes a strategic ally. In conflict situations, this attitude diminishes the power of drama and strengthens the perception of wisdom. Try it, for example, in meetings or debates. Listening attentively, thinking, and responding clearly conveys much more confidence than trying to impose yourself quickly. Over time, you'll realize that true strength lies not in the speed of speaking, but in the depth and purpose of each word, cultivating solid and lasting self-confidence. The power of silence is more than a technique. It's a path to self-confidence, patience, and wisdom. Every pause, every chosen word, And every moment of reflection helps transform insecurity into inner security. Ask yourself, how many times have you reacted impulsively and later regretted it? How many words could have been replaced by silence and reflection? By putting into practice what we've explored, you begin to realize that mastering silence is mastering yourself. Now, reflect. What would your life be like if you could choose your responses more consciously, protect your emotional energy, and face conflict calmly? How could self-control, patience, and active listening transform your relationships and your daily life? Start practicing today, even in small situations, and see the results. If this content was helpful, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more tips on self-confidence, stoicism, and personal growth. Every step counts, and transformation begins with a simple act: listening, reflecting, and choosing your words purposefully.